Narcissistic fleas. An awful description, and an inaccurate one. However, there are certain phrases and words that have fallen into common usage with reference to the narcissistic dynamic. And therefore, in order to ensure that you gain the best understanding and clarification as to what is really going on, provided by someone such as I, who understands myself and my kind with such detail and accuracy, I am, with a number of videos, selecting certain words and phrases that are commonly used, and then I will actually set people straight as to what's actually going on. People talk about narcissistic fleas and the idea that you can somehow catch narcissism or the behaviours of the narcissist as a consequence of being in some form of relationship, some kind of entanglement with our kind. You can't. And of course, you will invariably find yourself asking questions such as, HG, am I the narcissist? Or, HG, I've listened to this video and you describe this particular type of behaviour. And I do that from time to time, so I'm behaving like the narcissist. And does that make me one? Have I caught these narcissistic fleas? No, you haven't. First of all, you can't catch narcissism, and nor, when you're an adult, can you become one. The narcissist is created between the ages of roughly 0 and 9. As I have explained in the video, What Makes a Narcissist? Please listen to that to understand what creates us. And, of course, you might have an entanglement with a narcissist in those ages, parental one, for example. And thus, you become a narcissist for the reasons explained in What Makes a Narcissist. But invariably, you haven't. The relevant ingredients are missing. So you did not become a narcissist. And once you have, if you will, escaped that fate, you can't become one thereafter. When you're 14, you don't suddenly become a narcissist. When you're 27, you don't become a narcissist. The cake is baked. Your personality is formed. Yes, there are aspects around the edges which can change and alter with the effluxion of time and different influences upon you. But essentially, who you are, your personality has formed by that age. And the self-defense mechanism that is narcissism was not necessary for you, and therefore you didn't become one, and nor will you ever become a narcissist. What then of this concept of somehow adopting the behaviours of the narcissist? Actually, you don't. You see, many of the behaviours that we don't actually have a monopoly on them. And the point is that certain behaviours that we engage in and you engage in are similar. But it is the prism through which one looks at the nature of the individual who is behaving this way that tells us more about why the individual is doing that. So the starting point, of course, is that when you're dealing with an individual and you have suspicions that they are a narcissist, you put them through the narc detector consultation so that you receive my expert, objective and dispassionate input as to what they are, avoiding your lack of expertise. And I appreciate that many of you, as a consequence of my good works, gain a very good knowledge about the traits and behaviours of various narcissists. But remember, when it comes to identifying those in and around you, you need the expert, you need objectivity, you need to be unaffected by the consequences of emotional thinking, which can obscure and cause you to doubt that you are dealing with a narcissist when actually you are. Or might cause you to believe you're dealing with a narcissist when you're not. So the starting point is to ascertain that you're dealing with a narcissist. And once that has been confirmed, thereafter you look at the behaviours of that individual through the prism of their confirmed status as a narcissist. You, as a non-narcissist, have your behaviours looked at through the prism of being a non-narcissist, i.e. you operate with emotional empathy. We operate through the lens of the necessity of the prime aims, chiefly control and fuel. So, let me give you an example. You buy your neighbour some flowers to say thank you for looking after my dog while I had 2 weeks in Aruba. Why did you do that? Well, You understand that it is the polite and decent thing to do, and you did it because you were guided by your innate emotional empathy and your empathic traits of honesty and decency. So you purchased those flowers to say, thank you for doing me a favour. You didn't do it because you needed to control your neighbour. You didn't do it because you needed fuel from them. The narcissist will also buy flowers. Not always, but certain narcissists will buy flowers for that neighbour to say, thank you for looking after my dog whilst I have spent 2 weeks in Aruba. An unaware narcissist would think that they have done it by reason of being honest and decent and kind and considerate, that it's the right thing to do. But because they are a narcissist, we know that the real reason it's been done is to assert control over that neighbour and to draw fuel from them, and possibly a residual benefit, for instance, the maintenance of the facade. A lesser narcissist would do so, although that's less likely, does it in an unaware basis. They don't know the real reason they're doing it. They just think, no, I should do it. It's the right thing to do. The mid-range narcissist believes they're doing it because they're courteous, polite, decent, honest. But the real reason they're doing it, driven by their narcissism. But they don't know it. The greater and the ultra, no, we're doing it to control that person, to gain fuel, and as part of the facade, although we will not admit that to that individual or anybody else. Now, that is a situation whereby there is a benign act between individual and third party. For you, it's not an act of manipulation, it's not an act of control, it's not an act in pursuit of the prime aims, it's governed by your emotional empathy. For us, it is an act of manipulation. It's an act of benign manipulation to achieve those prime aims. What about, though, however, when you find yourself, let's say, repeatedly doling out silent treatments, a la the style of the mid-range narcissist? And you never used to do that, but now you do so. And indeed, you've started doing so because you realise that it creates a reaction in the narcissist that causes you to feel somewhat empowered. Or you become particularly argumentative with the narcissist and insulting, whereas once you never behaved that way. And you might pause and think to yourself either, why am I doing this? Or what suddenly made me become this way? Am I becoming the narcissist? Well, as I've already explained, that's impossible. So then the next question is, what's causing me to behave in a similar way to this narcissist? Well, as an empath, you're not a saint, you're a human being, and you're a bundle of empathic and narcissistic traits. And where you're an empath, some of you will have differing constitutions of those narcissistic traits, but they will invariably be kept in place by stronger narcissistic traits. Stronger empathic traits. And therefore, most of the time you behave in a manner whereby the narcissistic traits that you do have, envy, pride, vanity, showcasing, are kept in check by your empathic traits. So you, in effect, don't misbehave. However, when there is an external stressor, alcohol, drugs, fatigue, loneliness, bereavement, financial pressure, stress at work, and commonly abuse, your empathic traits reduce, and so your narcissistic ones come to the fore. And in those situations, it can cause you, in effect, to be less than decent towards the narcissist. Possibly other people, but usually the narcissist. So you suddenly become physically violent, or you start calling us names, or you cheat, or you engage in giving us silent treatments. You haven't caught the narcissistic fleas. That is wholly incorrect. All that has happened is that because you are a collection of empathic and narcissistic traits, our behaviour towards you amounts to an external stressor. The abuse that you are subjected to causes your emotional empathy for us to reduce, causes a reduction in your empathic traits that shield the narcissistic traits ordinarily, keeping them cocooned and in place, and your relevant narcissistic traits come forth. Argumentativeness, anger, infidelity, jealousy, pride, etc., in such a way that it causes you to lash out at us. And, of course, emotional thinking plays a part in this as well, because it wants you to continue to engage with us in some form. So it corrupts those narcissistic traits to make you actually feel good about what you're doing, to make you think, yes, I've landed a blow on the narcissist, serves him right. You then start to question yourself, because you are capable of self-reflection, unlike us, and wonder, am I becoming the narcissist? Have I caught these narcissistic fleas that people mention? You haven't. You're not learning to be a narcissist. You're not looking at what we're doing and thinking, oh, that's a good idea, I'll replicate that and behave in a similar way. Occasionally, if you do that, that's a conscious manipulation. And that is not the behaviour that you would ordinarily engage in, but it doesn't mean you become a narcissist or caught these ridiculously titled narcissistic fleas. All it is a consequence of you suffering reduced emotional empathy, and your narcissistic traits come to the fore. It's temporary as well. Sometimes it may just be once or twice. Others it might be repeated and sustained actions over a period of time, until such time as you remove yourself from the abuse, or we stop abusing you, perhaps by disengaging from you or the imposition of a respite period, and then you stop engaging in these behaviours. So ultimately, there's no such thing as narcissistic fleas. And as an empathic individual, you're not a saint. You are prone to making mistakes, but they are done as part of the reduction of your emotional empathy, the reduction of your empathic traits, and the rising of your narcissistic traits. That is what is behind your action. You are not manipulators. Occasionally you'll do it consciously, and with sometimes a degree of guilt for doing so, either in the time or afterwards. But ordinarily, you are not manipulative, because you're not designed to be that way. All that is happening is that there is a slight shift in your character and personality on a temporary basis for the reasons that I have outlined. So the good news is you don't need to call the pest control, because there are no narcissistic fleas near you. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.